we have a great panel put together here. We have a mayor, a city administrator, alternative energy program manager from a very large utility, and we also have a CEO, general manager from a rural public power district to talk about their process, their decision process for their choice to install either solar or wind resources for their local entity. First, we'll have Josh Moenning. He is the director of New Power Nebraska, an organization that works to promote renewable energy development across the state. He also is the mayor of the city of Norfolk. He was elected in 2012 to the city council, and 2016 as the mayor. Following him will be Lance Hedquist, city administrator, South Sioux City, lifetime resident of South Sioux City, been in public service for 47 years, 39 has been city administrator at South Sioux City. So someday there's going to be a major change there. Courtney Kennedy, alternative energy manager at OPPD, mechanical engineer, also has an MBA from Creighton, is responsible for the grid scale solar and renewable projects, and I'm pushing battery storage. I think that's coming too, but they won't admit it. And then finally, Phil Burke from Polk County, CEO, general manager, started in 1980, so another long-term employee. Started as lineman and has moved up to general manager in 2020. So again, we've got the panel. They'll each make their presentation. I would encourage you to hold the questions till the end, and I would also encourage you, if you have questions, please go to this mic in the center back. That way everybody can hear the question. We won't need to repeat it, so I'd encourage you to consider using that mic. So first up, Josh.
The community solar project we engaged more than 2 years ago with NPPD to start discussions about establishing community solar in Norfolk. And it's been a long process, but a careful and thorough one. And this April, our city council approved selection of a developer. An exciting wrinkle to this project is for the first time ever, a battery storage component would be tied to this solar project, and that is made possible by a Nebraska Environmental Trust Fund grant that we applied for earlier this year, and would provide for a megawatt and a half, up to a megawatt and a half battery storage project. So some details of the project. Siting was one of the first things we talked about, and we identified about 75 acres just west of Norfolk on Highway 275. The site works very well in this case. City-owned property, city well fields, so weren't being used for anything else, flat as a pancake, ready for development. The process, RFPs started last November, and NPPD manages this process for us, which is very helpful. Again, developer selected in April, and that's Sunvest. It's projected to be an 8.5 megawatt project, which to date would be the largest solar project in the state. Again, the tie-in with the battery project. We are in the process now of finalizing contract negotiations with the developer to get started, and construction is projected for next year. Would hopefully be operational by, what, Dave, October, November next year. So why are we doing this? First, I think customer preference is important. We see more and more that our citizens want to engage in renewable energy, and even now, more importantly, cost. It's become economically sensible to do this. And we were very excited to see the pricing come in on our project in such a way that, again, for the first time ever, participants in this solar program could theoretically lower their energy bills. And I think there's a lot of value in that, in opening people's minds to the potential of renewable integration into their local systems. Also, I think especially where we are in northeast Nebraska, kind of the hotbed of renewable energy generation. Doing this helps support our local and regional economy. It means new jobs, it means new farm income opportunities for farmers. And to me, if we can make our own energy and electricity in our own backyard, it makes a lot more sense to do that than to send money to Wyoming to have it carted in on a coal train. So in essence, that is why we're engaged in this. It's good for Norfolk, it's good for our region, and it's the right thing to do, and it makes economic sense. So I'll stop there and give Lance his 20 minutes.
Greetings from South Sioux City. I have the fortune to work for this town for quite a number of years, and I think that you'll recognize that South Sioux City is noted for being great in terms of intergovernmental cooperation. We have lots of agreements with the county, the city, and other groups. We're also a city that I think is noted for innovation. We have a lot of firsts in our city, first in the nation, first in the country, and first in the state activities. And third, in terms of energy, I think we've been very inspiring in terms of some of the things that we've done in terms of energy and improving our community in that process. We have 8 electric charging stations in our city. We have 4 electric vehicles in our city. We have a natural gas truck in our city. We have the most extensive bicycle path system in the United States. We have more bicycle paths per capita than any other city. We have more cameras per capita than any other city. We have 300 and some cameras that any police car can pan, tilt, zoom in on anybody. If a kid left school early, we could watch him go down the street from any car in any place within our community. We're also, I think, unique. We're trying to get an electric motorcycle, which would be the first in the state that actually is designed for police cars, for policemen to utilize in the community. And they're neat. Gives policemen sometimes want to go into a park or an area they don't want people to know they're there. It makes no noise, so you're totally quiet as you're coming up upon kids or some other group overall. We're also a founding member of the Nebraska Community Energy Alliance. I see Ann in the back that's been very involved in a lot of our energy activities in the community. We're also one that recognizes changes of trends. We have 300 and some third graders that come into the City Hall. They come in groups. They vote as a city council members. They vote if we should have a new swimming pool or a new park or whatever the case may be. But I'll ask them a question. I said, where do you kids think we get our electricity from? And then we go through those numbers. But then I ask them, where do you want to get your future electricity in our city? I said, how many want to get coal? Just like out here, there's not a hand that's raised. I says, how many want nuclear energy? Just like out here, there's no hand raised. I said, how many want renewables? Bam, everybody's hand skyrockets up. Every kid in the class, in all of the classes, all of the groups, all of them are 100% sold that we need to be doing renewable energy within our community. We also are fortunate because we're a growth community. We do have a lot of electrical load growth in our city. So we were a city that got 60% of our energy from coal, 30% from nuclear, 10% from other sources within our for our citizens. And again, we're growth. This is a national slide, and you can see that over the years that electricity use was going straight up. And everybody planned, all the planners and people involved in electricity said it's going to increase in terms of what you're going to have. And you can see particularly the industrial fell off the chart. It's very flat for the past 20 years. And even the past 10 years, both the residential and commercial sales have gone down overall with all the efficiencies that are taking place within our area. This is talking about nuclear retirements, what's taking place, and coal retirements. Again, 60% of our energy was coming from coal, 30% from nuclear, and nationwide you see in those plants close across the country. If you look at nuclear profitability and you look at the different regions that we talked about, you see that in the nuclear profitability, there's not a lot of nuclear plants that are in a positive financial situation for any of the areas, except for PJM and SERC. They have some profitability a little in the Northeast. Coal, same way. If you look at the coal costs that we have in the area, coal has lots of places that are losing money, and so there's lots of coal places closing up, and so you're going to see a continuous drop in terms of coal for an area. Electric pricing trends, you can see that the pricing trend is going down 40% in just recent years, and it will likely continue to go down, particularly because there's a glut of electricity in the SPP region, both in terms of capacity and energy. So that's definitely going down. The wind and solar costs, and you've heard that throughout the conference here, that solar costs and wind costs are definitely on the decrease. You can see there's a 70% decline in the last 10 years. Prices now, if you're out in the market, would certainly be in the lower teens, maybe even below $15 in terms of what that would cost on the wind side, and then on the other side of the coin from solar, it's probably double that, but you can see those prices are tremendously dropping for the consumer. The subsidy rate is the reason for a lot of that. There's huge subsidies that goes into solar and wind, and obviously you want to watch those national trends of what's taking place. The renewables, on the other hand, have you seen in the other slides today, that's definitely going up in terms of new solar, new wind coming across the country. That we absolutely expect to continue to happen throughout our area. The city of South Sioux City, our total capacity of our city is about 45 megawatts. Again, we're a growth city, so that's going up to 50, 55 megawatts. We also have 5 megawatts that are commercially controlled. We don't call them; they just shut their electricity down within our community, which is obviously nice to do and keeps our costs down. In our battery storage costs, we're doing that with NextEra Energy. We did get, they obviously get the 30% federal tax credit. We're also fortunate to have the Nebraska Environmental Trust to be a partner with us on that. I see their directors here today. Appreciate their efforts in working with us on that. And then the balance of that cost is paid for by NextEra in our community. So I could say 45 megawatts, I could say 40, so whichever one you want to use. I used the 40 up here. The battery size we picked was 1.5 megawatts. And the reason for that has no scientific knowledge or background. It had to do with how the funding is structured. So we want to maximize the funding that could come in. And when you discharge that battery, you could do it over 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour. And as you look at your peak load in your community, that will make a difference to how you want to strategize that endeavor. We're also just going to open up a 5 megawatt natural gas facility in our town that was entirely paid for by a private industry. They wanted it for backup for them. They store 50 million pounds of meat, and they didn't want to have an outage cause them to lose that, so they built the facility. We get the capacity credit from that project. That's a picture of the battery system. For those that haven't seen a battery before, I just thought you'd want to note that. the savings have changed, and part of the reason the savings for us have changed is because the demand costs that we're paying are significantly less than we were before, and so that's narrowing the value to the city. It's still profitable for the city to pursue, but our savings has really dropped from what it was intended originally to do. But we want to do that. We also want our city to be a educational center, so that's why when we do our hydro or our solar, all our different projects, we want to be an educational center for the community. And the load that comes from our solar farm, which is 23 acres, 2.3 megawatts, those readings go into every school in our city, so the kids can see how much energy is being produced by those units. All the battery storage will help control our peak in our community. We have the extra advantage now of doing the 5 megawatt natural gas plant that also will be able to be used for that purpose. So I think we have a really good outlook and a way to keep our peak costs down for our communities. So appreciate the chance to comment on what we're doing and look forward to a great renewable future.
Good morning. My name is Courtney Kennedy, and I'm with OPPD, the Manager of Alternative Energy Program. And I just want to say I get the joy to talk to you about our community solar program today, but there's been a lot of people, many in this room from OPPD, and some of our customers that have really helped us along this journey. So I just want to acknowledge the work that's gone into this. So why community solar? A couple of reasons. One is we started to have a growing interest from our customers saying, when are you guys going to look at this? How are we going to do community solar or even solar in OPPD's footprint? It supports our mission, and it also provides an environmentally sensitive product for our customers. So this was really, again, customer-driven, something that they were asking for. So what is community solar? I think the term community solar, as we've seen the last few days, means a lot of different things to different people. Some are state-mandated programs, for the examples of Illinois and Minnesota that were mentioned yesterday. There are many community solar programs within the state. But really, when OPPD started to look at community solar, we really focused on that first word, community. What does it mean to our community, our customer owners, and how do we define that? And so that was really a key piece, was that this program was going to be defined by our customers. So we set out on a stakeholder process a couple of years ago, and we incorporated a lot of our customers' input into how we would design this program. Some of those are even in attendance today. It is an opt-in program. It's a shared solar array within our service territory, and it's an alternative to customers owning solar on their roof or near their homes. So we'll walk through a couple of the key milestones of the project since we're limited on time today. But we'll kind of refer to this timeline here. So as I mentioned, this is defined by our customers. And so how we did that is, in the beginning stages, we engaged our stakeholders and really tried to define what is this. We conducted outreach, and the workshop findings really helped us to narrow in on what this program might mean for OPPD. And so as you can see here, it needed to be simple and available to all customers. So that meant residential and other commercial and industrial customers. We saw that there was a high demand from our customers. The size was critical. We heard many times that we wanted a project that was meaningful and impactful in the region. Visibility was important, but that didn't necessarily have to be physically visible. As long as customers knew where it was and could keep an eye on construction and the operations of it, they were comfortable with that. And then lastly, affordability, so a program that most people could participate in, and the educational value throughout the process was going to be important. We also worked to develop a rate, and the idea behind this is it's a market-based rate. When we went into designing the program and the rate to support it, we had to keep in mind that not everyone was ready to participate in this program. And so how do we design a rate and a product that meets the customer's needs that are ready to jump into community solar without putting those costs on the customers that aren't ready to participate? So that was a key piece into designing it. And just something to note, this is different than our generation fleet. So you heard a lot yesterday about how our fleet over the last 10 years has really been transitioning to more renewables. This was a separate product, again, for customers that want to participate in it. So the next piece was looking at what sites make sense. So we knew we wanted it in our service territory, and we worked with some local entities and the stakeholders to look at a couple of pieces of property that might be good. And we landed on 3. One would be a smaller piece of property in Gretna, one in Bellevue, and then Fort Calhoun, Nebraska. And just to be clear, Fort Calhoun is the town and not the site where our nuclear facility is. In the RFP process, we allowed developers to respond for any one of these sites or one of their own sites. We received over 100 proposals of varying sizes, varying locations, varying prices, so it took quite a bit of time to go through and really figure out which of these projects were going to really fit the need of our first community solar project. And eventually we selected it. This selection was on the 35 acres outside of Fort Calhoun. So this picture here shows, I don't know how to operate. Here's our OPPD substation, here's the town of Fort Calhoun, here's our site, and Fort Atkinson, if anyone has been to Fort Atkinson, it's just on the other side. So how does it work? So I'm not going to pretend to be the marketing expert, and we have my phone a friend in the back of the room if anyone asks too hard of a question, but really this is a subscription-based product. So if someone wants to participate, they can sign up. Customers get to purchase their desired amount of shares. So what we landed on through our stakeholder process was this was a shares program, not an actual own a panel program. So 1 share is equal to 100 kilowatt hours per month, and there was no quantity limit per household or per customer. We wanted people to be able to sign up for what made sense for them. As I mentioned earlier, it's a market-based rate rider that customers participate in, and this will be evaluated annually. And the idea is, as the value of solar changes, the value of solar being a capacity component that OPPD and all utilities have to maintain on the system, and an energy component, we'll continue to evaluate that as the SBP marketplace changes, and customers pay for their fair share of that. So what's the status today? We had about 8,400 shares that were available, and those sold out in 49 days. So we knew there was a lot of interest initially, but it really showed through when we sold those shares out. These were all subscribed by residential customers, and the way we opened it up was to allow residential the first chance, because likely they were going to buy smaller chunks, and then we were going to open it up to commercial and industrial. Well, we never got to that point, so only residential were buying this, which was cool to see that there was that much interest. We have 375-ish, probably plus or minus a few, on the waiting list today. So we definitely have some interest. Construction update. So the F word of the year is flood, and that has been a challenge, as most of us in this room know. So construction has gone well, but we have had several delays, and so we are continuing to work on that. Kind of coming out of that, we will consider the floodplain in the coming projects, but really we have to remember that this was historic flooding this year. And if you look at the Missouri River, this is not far from, it's had 3 of the 5 largest floods in recent history were in 2019, 2011, and then back in the 70s, and I might be saying that wrong. So really a historic year, and our partners at NextEra have done a great job, and we've worked together to get through that. As you can see, there's some pictures up here of the various stages of construction. And I think I forgot to mention, but this is on the distribution interconnection. So with that, I have to save time, but I think we'll take questions at the end. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm the CEO and manager of Polk County Rural Public Power District, and the question came to us as far as why did we choose to put up a wind generator? We put up a 2.5 megawatt wind generator near Osceola, and we made that decision quite a while ago as far as what do our customers want. Our strategic plan about 5 years ago started looking at, we had a tag phrase for Polk County that was we serve those who own us, or owned by those we serve. And so in our strategic plan, we started asking, well, what would we really do differently if we truly believed that those who we serve own us. And so we started asking questions. We started sending out a survey. And one of the questions on the survey was, do you want Polk County involved in renewable projects? And the question and the answer, 66% of the respondents said, yeah, we would like you to be involved in renewable projects. And so we thought, well, that's somewhat of a clear answer, but really, to what extent? And so we also asked, do you want to pay extra? 42% said they would. 37% said, or 42% said they would not pay extra. 37% said they would be willing to pay extra. So we knew that we had somewhat of a interest, but we had a directive to start looking at what we could do, what kind of a project we could do that would give us those parameters. And so we started looking around, started thinking, and we actually entertained a couple of proposals that came to us that kind of met those parameters. So really, it was people's choice. It was our customers' choice to do that, and we asked them also what the reasoning was, and we asked if it's an environmental concern or if it's just to reduce cost in their interest. And you can see there that it was kind of right at the same balance right there as far as environmental concern. But they did want to reduce costs. So we knew we had a directive that we needed to do it with cost in mind. And so as we started working through, we had a couple of proposals. We also had another directive that it would have to meet our customers' approval. And so as we started working with developers, we put in the parameter that when they wanted to put into a project, that they would have to be able to meet some public acceptance parameters. And so we required a meeting, a public meeting, and once they started going through and citing the project, they would have to have a public meeting, and we would evaluate the project based on the public acceptance. And so they did, and we had a public meeting in Osceola because the site was just outside of Osceola. We had about 85 people show up, and we spent about 45 minutes presenting the project and what it would look like, what it would cost, and then we entertained questions. And for 45 minutes, we entertained questions from the audience. Out of those 85 people, no one had a negative comment. All the comments were interested. They wanted the project to go through, and so we thought that we had probably proven our point that this was something that the public wanted. So as we went forward, we kept the public in the loop. We kept publications going. We filmed every step of it, and the public was very interested. Being that close to Osceola, they were out there driving by quite a bit, and we kept stuff on our website and kept the public interested. Once we got to the end, we asked if anybody was interested in naming the project, and we allowed our customers to name it and gave them a whopping $25 credit on their bill for the winter. And we came up with the project name of Prairie Wind. At the end of this, the amazing part was we had a customer meeting, and we invited our public to come and join us. We had 200 people show up at the public meeting at the fairgrounds there in Osceola. About 80 of those wandered out, and we had a ribbon cutting, or about 150, I see the slide, 150 people attended the ribbon cutting. So we really see our project as one that's been accepted by the public. It's something that our public asked for. It wasn't driven by a cost shift. It wasn't driven by any other reason other than just meeting a need that our customers were asking for. And so the why for that resulted in as I said, a 2.5 megawatt wind generator. It's been performing fairly well for us. It's been up now about a year. It's been operable, running about 80% of the time, which is pretty good for a wind generator. Obviously, its load factor isn't that high, but its operation has been turning very well. And even still today, we have people driving by and asking, hey, I can see that wind generator from about York or someplace like that. It's a big interest to them, and so they all are fairly interested in what we're doing. And so we keep them informed as much as we can. So short answer, our reason for why to build it was public wanted it.
Industrial growth. We have a 87 million yellow pea plant that's going to start operation. They'll be about 4 megawatts in terms of what they're doing. And they've sold all their products for the next 2 years and haven't even opened their doors. So that's good. Then we have Empirical Foods that's putting on a $30 million expansion on there for food storage, which is also a nice load. It's very level to deal with. We got a new surgery center that's come in, but it'll definitely be industrial growth. And by the way, our energy costs, we reduced energy costs last year for all our residents 2%. This year we reduced it by 4%, and we expect next year we'll also reduce it by 4% based on our trends. And the price of renewables has caused our demand costs to go down to about a fourth of what they used to be. Significant reduction.
Yes.
Question for Phil. Are you going to put on or build some additional towers?
No, we're probably limited on the size that we can do. We only have a 10% carve out, and 2.5 is, we couldn't put another 2.5 on.
Another question.
Question for Lance. You showed a decreased realized savings, so there's some unanticipated costs. So what was the change? The reason for that?
Definitely, it was in terms of the demand charges. It was a primary focus of the change, that the demands we were paying and what's available today is just plummeting down. There's probably a 20% surplus of energy in the SPP region, and so as more and more renewables are coming online, they need a place to sell it. So if you're a place that can accept it, it's a great time to be out there buying.
Yes.
I'm curious, what was your biggest challenge in making this type of thing happen for your communities? And then secondly, what would be your advice to communities who wanted to do this type of thing themselves?
Maybe each of you can take it. Response.
I can tell you from our standpoint, we had zero public opposition. We had total public support, had tremendous youth support for the activity. It was on ground we already owned, so there was no issues there. And the other thing for us, it lowered our costs. That's kind of a positive issue all the way around.
Yeah, I would echo that. Through this process, we've had several public input sessions, and they've all been favorable, and cost is a big part of that. I mean, there's a underlying base of support for renewables in general, but when you match that with being able to lower people's bills, why not? And again, stressing this point, supporting our local and regional economies in the generation factor of this is a very important thing. I think a big opportunity for Nebraska. We've never had or been in a position to be an energy producer. Today, we have tremendous potential to do that.
I think for us, it's a challenge, but also an opportunity, is when we define what community solar is or what a community project is. True to public power, there's a stakeholder process, there's public input, as these guys have talked about. And I think being thoughtful of how that's done and how much time you allow input. Sometimes it's easy to want to get something built, but making sure you define it up front and have the right stakeholders in the room ultimately ends with the best product.
I think the biggest challenge for us is communication. Even though we're a small system, just keeping everybody in the same loop and communicating over and over and over. There's a lot of participants in a project like this, from the developer to the county supervisors, the city council, and then just our individual customers. Keeping them all with good information, with pertinent information that they can make that decision is a challenge, because you don't have the staff to be communicating all the time. You just have to work at it.
Okay, with that, let's wrap this session up. Let's all give them a big round of applause.